Hi, welcome back to the Steep. So I hope you all are doing great today. In this video, we're actually going to install and run one of the new tools in Kali 2026.3. And this one is called InSpy. So it's a OSINT based tool. So to my knowledge, it's set to do LinkedIn enumeration. So the first thing we're going to do is, now that we're at our console, we're simply going to do a which InSpy. And for those of you who've gone through like OSCP or whatnot, you can also do a locate InSpy. So in this case, it's telling us it's not there. So we're going to have to update our instance to get that installed. So again, we're going to do sudo app upgrade. Oh, excuse me. Let's go ahead and do an app update and then an upgrade. And I've already done this, so I'm going to skip that step, but you're going to want to do that on your system. And then when you're ready, we're actually going to use a new command. For those of you who might not be as familiar, right? So there is a search feature in APT that you can use to look for InSpy. And as soon as you do that, you'll see there's actually a package there and exactly what we thought it was, a LinkedIn enumeration tool. So we're going to go ahead and now run that APT install. And we're going to go ahead and prompt -y. I'm not so sure if it's going to tell us, hey, here are the packages or whatnot, but we want to be prepared for that in case it does. All right, and in this case, it says, looks like it's using some hypervisor under the hood. Not so sure what that's about. Long story short, probably because we have QEMU involved, simply because we were working on that for past emulation, especially when we were running the Kittysploit. So if you tuned into that video, Kittysploit actually was built in AMD 64, those Dockerized containers that we used. So that's probably the reason for this message. So don't be too alarmed. We'll go ahead and continue here. So now that we have that running, we should be able to do a which. And let's do this really quickly and see if it comes up. And in this case, it placed it in bin. Now, one thing I like to do, and I would encourage you to do this too, is let's just update our database. So we're going to do this in case Kali has some man pages or whatnot that need to be refreshed. So in this instance, it looks like it's telling us it can't find any such file or directory, which is kind of concerning since that's actually under a Kali shared drive that's mounted. So I'll have to look into that in a different video, but we'll skip over that for now. And now we should be ready to run InSpy. And we are the Steep user again, so we're a lower privileged account. So let's see if this actually will launch and work for us. So in this case, you can see it does provide us with an InSpy use message here. So in this case, it tells us there's a -- domain option that we can use to look at company detail. So how about we do, oh, I don't know. Let's do Pepsi maybe. We'll do domain and then we'll call it, how about Pepsi? And let's see if it comes up with anything here. We're just going to pass it as is and see what we get. In this case, it's telling us, sorry, the company is required. So we need a domain, so probably PepsiCo.com. So let's go ahead and do PepsiCo.com here and see if we actually get anything better. And in this case, it's still telling us, sorry, obviously this detail is required for company domain. So let me go out there and make sure I'm not messing up anything, which, wouldn't be far or bad for the course here. So I'm going to switch over to domain simply because I used to work there and I know this one exists. We're actually going to type in visa.com. All right. And it looks like this is still giving us an issue. So not so sure what the context is. We'll probably want to take a look and see if there's any manual page for this and what we're doing wrong. And in this case, there isn't a manual page. So this is something that we probably just want to be aware of and see if we can figure out exactly what the problem is. And maybe it's simply because we need to pass an additional company name after the fact. So let's try that, right? And we'll just put in Visa here at the end and see what we get. All right, and in this case, it looks like it did try to enumerate, which is good. But as you can see here, it looks like it's using Hunter IO underneath the hood, which is great. And it couldn't identify it based on the email format, so we're supposed to use a -- email format as well. And then as you can see here, it's giving us an actual issue with respect to the fact that we did not pass that in. So we're going to go ahead and do an email address here. And let's see if we can pass something in here. And I'm going to pass in my old Visa account and see if it works. Okay, so it's telling me we still couldn't identify the email format. So in this case, it looks like we've got a little bit of troubleshooting to do. So I'm going to pause the video here. I'm going to give you a little bit of reprieve so you can take a look at this tool yourself, and then we'll come back here in a moment and see it work the way that it should work once it's running properly. So hang tight. We'll be right back. We're just going to pause this video and call it. So hang on. We'll be right back. Okay, so welcome back. Did you get it sorted, right? You might have, but here's a news flash. Even when you do get it corrected, and there's a couple things that we needed to change, and I'll talk about that here in a moment. But even when you do get it corrected, you're still going to get 404 errors. And even though it will do some crawling, the problem that it's encountering right now is InSpy may be touted about as being a brand new addition to 2026.3 Kali, and it's a wonderful new tool. The reality is it's been around for quite some time, and it's not a new tool. It's actually an older one. So its inclusion is more legacy based, and from a standpoint of it being updated, probably Python wise or something to that effect. We go out to GitHub and see if we actually see something a little bit better there. But at this juncture, I would consider this a little bit of a red herring and something you need to be aware of. So now let's talk about the actual fixes. So step number one is when you saw, and let me see if I can up arrow and get some of that, or I'll scroll back up here and see if I can get some of that issue that we were seeing. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm probably making you sick here. All right. So see this error? Root hunter IO HTTP 401 error. So that first and foremost was the fact that our API key, even though we had set that on our export, wasn't getting picked up. And the reason for that is InSpy is an OSINT tool, so it's not intended to be run as root. However, it wasn't getting that passed over cleanly. So there's actually around line 30 in that InSpy file itself, and you'll find that under /user/share/inspy/inspy. And again, we can take a look at that really quickly here too. Let me get into that so you can see it. But long story short, we had to add that API. And then once that got squared away, we actually had to take a little bit more advantage of what the issue was with respect. So you'll see I've got a Hunter IO API key here. Don't worry, I'm going to change this before I before I post the video, so this will go away really quickly. So for those of you with eagle eyes, yeah, shame on you. You know what I'm talking about. But in any case, when we run this again, right, it's still giving us a bunch of issues after we after we created that API. We got a little bit further, but in this case, it was still telling us, yeah, sorry, I can't correct things, and that's because the actual logic was broken. So again, you're going to want to do which inspy. You'll find that it points to user bin inspy, and then when you actually take a look at that file, it is an ASCII script, right? It is a shell script, so you can edit it directly. But when you do edit it directly, it will actually point you to another file. Which is pretty common. And this one goes to that user share inspy. So if we take a look at that, right, here's our cat from the inspy directory. So, and if we go down to the API key setting, you're going to see that here in right around, yeah, row or line 30. And here's where we would put in our API key, hard coded. Now, the problem is this particular block right here. This block here is actually broken as is, the logic. And again, I'm not doing any thing fancy here, folks. So if you're not a developer, and I'm certainly not, you can use AI assisted tools to help you with this. So you know, if you're Claude or Anthropic oriented, if you're Gemini oriented, whatever you want, right? The beautiful thing about Gemini as well as Claude is that you can install both of these here on Kali. Gemini, I think you just do Gemini-CLI and that'll install. You will need an API key for both of those, however, so just bear that in mind. You're going to have to get yourself set up there. Both of them have free accounts. Just bear in mind you'll hit limits on each. And then Claude actually has a desktop that you can run from within Kali as well. And I know I'm kind of conflating it now with a Claude install, but if you happen to be on ARM64 like I am, you're going to want to go ahead and use that QEMU emulator. That will help you with the Claude desktop as well. So anyhow, once we do that right, we're going to replace that verbiage. And when we do, we start to get these 404 errors. So let me just back up here and we'll take a look at that file. So here's the new block that we added that actually replaces the broken logic in lines, originally lines 34 through 44. And for those of you, sorry, I know Nano is probably the new thing or the new kid on the block these days. Yeah, and without starting a flame war here, I prefer VI or Vim as it's called for those of us who, you know, were born a little bit more currently than I was. Anyhow, you'll see here that that lines 48 through 58 are that new block, and that's what we're going to want. And set space new or set number is really what the long format of this is. That will actually turn on line numbering. And if you want to turn this permanently on in VI, just create a Vim RC file, or a run script is another nomenclature for that. So it won't save every time you open VI. You'll have to run the set new each time unless you update that within your Vim RC. So if you need assistance with that, let me know. But at this juncture, again, I guess the lesson here is be leery of anybody telling you, hey, these are great new tools for OSINT. These are wonderful things to use. The reality is you're going to have to try them out and see if they still work. If they still work, great. If they don't, and this is the case, it looks like Lincoln provided a lot more robust hunter blocks and AI bots type of automation blocking, and more movement to dynamic HTTP, right? So dynamic HTML. So when you're actually doing calls or whatnot, you're not going to get the data that you would expect. So simply because that hasn't been updated to be a little bit more modern. And again, we'll try something else, right? So I know I have all decked out. So I'm going to do that and see if that even comes up with anything. Now, to be fair, I'm only expecting myself in this case. So we'll do a first really quickly and see if we get anything back. And I'm going to put this in single quotes where we actually have spaces. And let's just see if this even identifies or works with it, or if we get that same 404. Okay, and as you can see, it's kind of crawling through things, but in this case, it still looks like it's trying to grab that email format for first at Visa. And the reason for that is because I, like a dumbass, made a typo. So know what you're doing, folks, before you do it, right? That's the other lesson. And it's easy, right? It's easy when you're working with this stuff to get a little bit caught up in how you're doing things. So each one of these lessons kind of has a point, right? So try this against authorized domains before you start going nuts on anything. And in this case, same thing. So. And if you actually do a little bit of Googling, you're going to see I'm not the first person to raise version 3.0.0 as an issue. So be leery as you're kind of going through and following people's new tools lists, and try these things out for yourself. This is actually, I guess, a lesson in what necessarily you shouldn't do or you might encounter or whatnot. So I wanted to throw this up so you're aware, and in case you're beating your head against the wall, you're not alone in that regard. So anyhow, sorry for, I guess, the negative episode here in terms of what not to do, but those are all good things. And again, if I could save you some frustration, I'd like to, right? Really the point of this entire channel is to be educational. So in addition to seeing the sexy cool stuff that works, that we know is just going to blaze through stuff, we're also going to tackle some things that maybe are getting press or highlights or publication that maybe shouldn't, or maybe just need a little bit more extra care and feeding and modification. Now, if you got this running, wonderful. If you did, that's fantastic. You're more than welcome to keep it to yourself or to share it. But from my standpoint, I would probably move on to some additional OSINT tools that are a little bit more robust, Or more importantly, I probably have some custom scripts that I would use that would scrape LinkedIn for me directly. So is that something that's going to change in 20 minutes? Yeah, it probably will. So bear that in mind. Anyhow, this has been a long lesson. We'll call it a day at this point, but peace. We'll see you next time. Thanks.